Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be going over some tips for Africa, how to identify the countries in Africa with Google coverage, and some more specific regions, I suppose. Let's just get right into that. I haven't uploaded in 2 days, which is the longest break I've ever had, and I apologize for that. I definitely will be taking some breaks in the future again though, and this will be more of a beginner video. When you get more experience in GeoGuessr, African countries can be some of the easiest countries. So in this video, I'm just going to be going over that. I might have covered some of these tips in my shorts in the past, but maybe some of you haven't seen all of those. And I just want to condense all that into one video. So let's just get right into it. Alright, so starting off with the northernmost country that has official Google Street View coverage, we have Tunisia. And Tunisia is a very easy country. The coverage is pretty limited, and there's lots of easy ways to identify it. Sometimes you can get confused with like Jordan, which makes sense because if we look right here, Tunisia is an Arabic country, but they were also a French colony for a very long time. So you'll find a good mix of Arabic and French. Look right there, we got some French, and then right there we got some Arabic and some French. And we'll also, in Tunisia, we'll have this follow car. And there's a couple different ones, but most of them will be like this green truck or green SUV that follows you around for privacy laws and stuff. So that's definitely the easiest way to identify. We also have a flag right there, and flags are pretty common in Tunisia as well. Moving south to another former French colony, we have Senegal. Now, Senegal recently got some brand new Google coverage, and there are three coverages that are really going to help you identify Senegal. So the first is the unblurred Google car, and that's pretty self-explanatory. There's no blur on the car. It's a white or light gray car with this very dry landscape all around us. However, we can also find the blurred Google car that has this rather large blur because the car is so big that the blur has to kind of compensate for that. And this blur is pretty unique because it's not really a wide blur, it's more of a long blur that goes up front. And finally, we have the older Google coverage, which Google's kind of phasing out at this point now that the new coverage has come out, but you'll still sometimes come across it. And basically, you'll find these rifts, and these rifts are only found in Senegal, Albania, and Montenegro, as well as these roof racks on the side of the car. And most of the coverage with this old coverage is in like more rural, remote regions now. Most urban areas will have the new coverage, but this can still help you identify Senegal. And one final thing, if you're playing no moving, panning, zooming, and can't see the Google car, then these poles are really going to help you out. As well as this landscape, there's these very light concrete ladder poles with this unique thing at the top. Moving even farther south, below the Sahara Desert, we have Ghana. Now, this is one of the first metas you'll ever learn in GeoGuessr, and that's just the Ghana car, where you'll find these roof racks on the side, and this one right here will have tape on it, as well as often this front part of the car, along with this mirror, will be revealed. So you don't even need to look down. If you're just looking forward and you see this part of the car, then that is guaranteed to be Ghana. But again, if you're playing no moving, panning, or zooming, you can sometimes get Ghana confused with Nigeria. They both have English signs, they both have similar landscapes and soil colors. So the poles are really going to help you out, and for the most part, Ghana just uses these pretty standard wooden poles, while Nigeria will use concrete ladder poles like the ones you'll find in Brazil. Speaking of Nigeria, Nigeria also has some unique metas to it. The coverage, for the most part, is pretty similar to coverage you'll find in India, where it's kind of this low quality camera with this giant blur below, but Nigeria often has a follow car, and that's just this police car right here. Now, Nigeria will also speak English for the most part, and you'll find these ladder poles as well, like I said with Ghana. But very rarely you can find a visible Google car in Nigeria. And the way you tell is it will have like this black and yellow tape all over it. Now, moving to the eastern side of the continent, we have Kenya, and Kenya also had new coverage quite recently, but the meta basically stayed the same, and the meta is basically just this snorkel here, as well as yellow license plates and driving on the left. First off, with the capital Nairobi. Nairobi is a pretty developed city, especially for African country, as you'll often find like full-on skyscrapers, and of course the Kenya car. And you won't really find architecture like these skyscrapers anywhere else in Kenya or really Africa. And another city that's quite easy to get in Kenya is the port city of Mombasa. Now you'll have this Kenyan car. It kind of looks different as well with these antenna and the snorkel. And then it's super common to find palms. And while you will find palms in cities like Nairobi, they're going to be very, very common in Mombasa. And finally, very rarely in Kenya, you won't have the snorkel, but instead have these two antennae. And this is mostly in the western part of the country, kind of west of Nairobi there. Moving a bit west to a neighboring country of Kenya, we'll have the easiest country in Africa to get in GeoGuessr, and this is Uganda. In Uganda, basically only the capital city will have official Google coverage, for the most part. There's some like random national parks, but those are quite uncommon. All you need to know is this Google car with these visible corners. This is only found in Uganda. Moving on to a neighboring country of Uganda, we have Rwanda. And I actually made an entire video on Rwanda when we first got coverage for it, so I'll link that right here if you want to check it out. But some basic tips is that there's only coverage in the capital city, and black and white stripes on the side of the roads, kind of similar to like Malaysia or Singapore. And then the street names will often just be KG with a number. So it's pretty easy to pinpoint street names because there's a bit of a pattern. And it's also a good way to identify the country itself. And then also the Google car is pretty unique as we have an unblurred black truck, unlike Kenya and Senegal, which have gray and white trucks. Uganda will have kind of this dark blue truck. Moving very far south to Botswana. Botswana is very easy to identify just with these road lines. The entire southern African region has these kind of reverse road lines where the yellow is on the outside and the white is on the inside. Oh, there's a donkey right there. And Botswana also has this, but you can sometimes find like this glitch on the car where you can barely see it, as well as just like this very dry, sandy, gravelly environment with like this white sand. This is only found in Botswana, and it's also quite flat, which is very different than South Africa, for example. Speaking of which, South Africa also has the same road line pattern as Botswana, but we can see that it's just a very different landscape. And we also have Botswana also has Gen 4 coverage, South Africa has Gen 4 coverage, and sometimes Gen 2, but a much more green and hilly landscape. And most of the coverage is concentrated kind of around the Pretoria region. So in Pretoria and around Pretoria is a very good spot to go, especially with this very green landscape. Moving to one of the most difficult countries for new players in GeoGuessr, this is Eswatini, but Eswatini is actually incredibly easy to identify. And it's all to do with the Google car. Now South Africa does not have a visible Google car. I mean, we have the same road lines as pretty much the entire southern African region, but we have this white Google car as well as this long grass on the side of the road. And this is basically everywhere in Eswatini, and it's only found in Eswatini. Lesotho is also very similar to Eswatini in that it has a visible Google car along with these road lines, but won't have any trees at all. Basically, it's just these very dry, grassy hills. For these last two places, these are quite rare, and you'll almost never really find something like this. But this is Madagascar, and this is the only street view coverage of Madagascar. There is some trekker coverage, but obviously we have a very unique car. And in Madagascar, there's also some boat coverage with this weird looking boat that's made of wood. And finally, the least common place you'll find in Africa is the French overseas territory of Réunion, which is just south of Madagascar, and it's quite easy, it's just meta. You'll also have this tape on the roof rack, but while Ghana's tape will be here, this one is here. And you also just have this visible front of the car and European license plates. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe for more GeoGuessr content, and comment what you want to see me cover next.